Hello, SYNGAP land. My name is Mike Graglia, and this is SYNGAP 10, the SYNGAP 1 podcast. Today is Tuesday, January 28th, and this is episode 159 of the pod. Starting with studies of the week. There are two studies that the team is focusing on right now, and I want to thank Rorie and Virginia and everyone else on the recruiting team who is helping with this. The first is Rochester 3. We have cool videos out now that you can watch, but if you go to securesyngap1.org/Rochester3, links, of course, in the show notes. You can learn more about it, but it's basically an interview and a questionnaire. We're really looking for 0 to 2-year-olds. Now, it's really hard to get diagnosed with SYNGAPs that early. So if you're a parent of a 0 to 2-year-old and you're not one of the couple of people with a 0 to 2-year-old who've signed up for the Rochester 3 study, please do. I think we're almost full on the over 2s. If you're curious, go ahead, watch the video, check it out. But if you have a 0 to 2-year-old, we really need to fill those slots. The other study we're recruiting for is the NYU study looking at EEGs. This one's really cool. They want your video EEGs. They want at-home recordings of seizures. They want to have parents score them. They want to have neurologists score them. They want to really understand how good we are at capturing and describing seizures. That sounds academic, but it's not, because seizure tracking is going to be something that happens in clinical trials. It's all about clinical trials. We've been talking about science. We've been talking about funding science and finding ways to cure our kids. And as you'll hear in this pod, those are coming fast and furious. But once we get those scientific solutions out of labs and into companies, we then have to get them through trials. So all you're going to hear me talking about is the ways in which we need to ensure that the trials are as effective as possible at helping us find and prove the power of these therapies. So the NYU study is super important. curesyngap1.org/NYU. We're making this pretty easy, guys. Check out the video. Let us know. Links in the show notes for the tracker page for all the studies and trials that are afoot. But that's what I'm focusing on right now. Rochester 3, if you're 0 to 2, please do that. NYU, if you've had video EEG, please do that. There was a study huddle on Thursday. We have so many studies now. I just gave you the top two. The team is doing a monthly huddle where if you're curious but you have questions and you're not sure and you're sick of Mike talking about it, you can just go to the Zoom meeting and say, hey, what's up? Explain this to me. I have these questions, blah, 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 and they'll answer them. It's a great idea. I think Rorie and Virginia are doing awesome work here. curesyngap1.org/study huddle. Pretty straightforward. So that's on Thursday. I want to talk about company of the week. This is pretty cool. So there's a company out there called Minovacca. This is coming out of Nebraska. And I will add to the show notes. I'm making myself a note here. The press release, but we have funded Dr. Zemplenny at Nebraska twice for non-trivial sums of money, by the way. We've given this guy a lot of cash by our standards. And good news is he has created a company called Minovacca, which is using milk-derived exosomes to deliver therapies. And we really, I think, put neurodevelopmental diseases on his radar. And now they are, if you read this press release from announcing the creation of Minovacca out of Nebraska, they talk about SYNGAP 1. And I'm pretty sure that's entirely because of SRF's advocacy and funding. So great job, donors. Great job, SRF. And good luck to Professors in Plenty and Minovacca. We'd love to see that company bring therapies to market. We'd love to see them bring therapies to Syngapians. So that's pretty exciting. Wanted to share that with you. Put that on your list. I came across a really cool podcast this week that I want you guys to listen to. It's by some guy named Kevin MD who's got a pod, but he's interviewing the guy in charge of Autism BrainNet. And Autism BrainNet is a part of the Simons Foundation. And Autism BrainNet, you can register with Autism BrainNet and just say, hey, get all the paperwork sorted out so that if and when your Syngapian passes, you're all set up to donate their brain. You're like, why would we donate their brain? Well, this podcast explains the importance of the autistic brain for research. Specifically, if you have a monogenic indication like SYNGAP, it would be a huge resource for our team. So we never want to talk about our kids dying. We don't want our kids to die. We're going to fight like hell to make sure our kids don't die. But unfortunately, sometimes our kids die, and it's terrible when parents are grieving to be like, have you thought about brain donation? So it's less awkward for me to bring it up now. Anyway, listen to that pod, give it a thought, and if you're like, this could happen one day, and I want to help contribute to the cause, autismbrainnet.org. I also want to give a shout out to our friends at Global Genes, of which we are a proud member. Global Genes is the only, it's not the only patient advocacy umbrella group, but in my opinion, it is one of the best. And it's the OG. That's what I should have said. It's the OG. Its Combined Brain is now very much in the same league as Global Genes, and those two organizations are just excellent. So Global Genes put out a really good piece on patient engagement improves outcomes. So if you're one of our industry partners, I would urge you to read that one. Patient engagement improves outcomes. The link is in the show notes. Make sure you read that. I want to give a shout out to Parisa, who is the patient advocacy relations person at Stoke Therapeutics. By the way, she's an author on this paper, which is totally unsurprising because she's so plugged in and she really cares, which is great. But everybody else, guys, if you're in industry, read this paper, share it with your leadership. And the message here is, especially for rare diseases, the more you work with patient advocacy groups, the better your outcomes, the better your trials. Because everything that we used to do for the old-fashioned drugs, for the big diseases, the world is different. These populations are different. These diseases are different. The timelines are different. So you got to work closely with the patient advocacy groups. Here we are. I'm doing a frickin' podcast just so you know what we're up to and who we are, and you can get to know us before you even call us. So patient engagement improves outcomes. We want you to have the best possible outcomes for SYNGAP1. The SYNGAP Research Fund, doing business as Cure SYNGAP1, by the way, is here to work with you, industry. Give that a read. And if you're a patient family and you just don't understand why I keep talking about industry and why I think it's such a big deal, read that paper. It's free. Check it out. It's pretty cool. Let's talk about a research update. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. So I mentioned at the top, today is Tuesday, January 28th. That puts us in week 5 of 2025. Why is that a big deal? Well, last year we had 54 papers on SYNGAP1, and there's 52 weeks in the year, remember. So that means we need at least one paper a week to be at the same level as last year, but of course we prefer to beat last year. So how are we doing? How are we doing in week 5? Well, if you go to PubMed.gov, you'll see there have been 315 papers on SYNGAP1, 54 papers in 2025, and to date, 54 papers in 2024, I misspoke, and 4 papers in 2025. Now, you will be unsurprised to know that as far as SYNGAP's concerned, I'm actually ahead of PubMed. I'm about to tell you about a 5th paper that they haven't even added to their webpage yet. Probably happen tomorrow. But on that, of those 4 that are listed on PubMed, there is the China paper I spoke about last time. There is the Gralier et al. Paper where we did a SYNGAP roadmap. There's a Rumbaugh paper. There's a Hugeneer paper. The Hugeneer paper is pretty heady, and it sort of delves into the science, like talking about why which part of SYNGAP does what and what causes seizures and what causes ID. Very interesting. Not obviously applicable to families. I welcome correction there, Dr. Hugeneer. If you want to call me or do a webinar, tell us why we should be interested. But that felt just like science that other scientists are going to understand and appreciate. The Coller paper, on the other hand, it talks about a new technology, new RNA technology that works on the poly A tail of a given gene or RNA or whatever, and to make it last longer. So what this means in English, we have a good copy and a bad copy. I haven't done this for a few weeks. And what Dr. Coller has done is he's found a new way to make the good copy last longer, right? It's like Tango with Stoke, but it's a different mechanism. And it's really cool. And in the Coller paper, which is pretty beautiful science, I'm told, he talks about 4 genes. SYNGAP1, MECP2, which is RET, CTNNB1, which is our friend Effie Parks and her population, and PURA, P-U-R-A. But SYNGAP1 is at the top of that list. And when you go to the list of funders in the back of that paper, which I do all the time, there are a bunch of NIH grants in there because Dr. Coller is a big deal. There's another large private foundation, which I haven't heard of. And there are 2 patient advocacy groups, the SYNGAP Research Fund and CTNNB1. So good job, friends at CTNNB1. And I just want to point out that Professor Coller started working on SYNGAP in October of 2022. And I shared the link in the show notes. So that was, use your brain, Mike, over 2 years ago. 27 months to be precise, that we put out that press release. And here we are with a paper showing a new mechanism for potentially treating SYNGAP1. So that's why we got to raise money, guys. That's why we got to jump all over these promising scientists when they come to our attention and they call us and they say, hey, I want to work on SYNGAP. Because there's probably a lot of genes that could have been in that paper. But those 4 genes, now there is published science about how poly-A tails are a way to address SYNGAP1 haploinsufficiency. So let's hope that some company snaps that up if someone hasn't already. I know historically Teverd, who you've heard me talk about, has some of Dr. Coller's other inventions. So maybe they're going to get this one too. Or not, I don't know. Anyway, very exciting. Congratulations, Dr. Coller. So you saw it earlier. We gave these grants to professors in plenty. Now there's a company, Minovacca. We gave grants to Professor Coller. Now we have this exciting poly-A tail technology. Incredible stuff, guys. We're changing the future for Syngapians. Are these going to turn into therapies in a month, in a year, in 2 years? I don't know. But we are really investing in the future, and it should give every family hope, and you should turn that hope into fundraising. We need more money to give more grants to accelerate more science. That's how we do work, guys. We work together, we raise funds, we change the future for our kids. It's going to be awesome. Speaking of working together, I want to give a shout out to Deanna N. Rorie, named Farley. So when we met her in the beginning, Deanna Farley was actually Tony's nanny. And she was the best nanny you ever had. And she was just amazing. And then when I started SRF, I wanted to do these Wednesday Warriors. So we did, of course, Tony was the first warrior. And then I think it was Sophia. Thank you, Marta. And then, there have been 160 others since then, at least. Maybe 180. I've lost track. So Deanna Rorie, née Farley, has been probably the longest serving SYNGAP1 volunteer. She is now married, has a kid. She's an amazing BCBA in the South Bay here in the Bay Area, and she's just an amazing woman, and we are so grateful to her. And unlike so many of our rock star volunteers, she doesn't have a Syngapian. She just was Tony's nanny, and she wanted to help SRF, and she stopped working for our family years ago. Well, she had to go get a job, and we moved, but she's still been volunteering for SRF forever. And she was finally like, guys, I can't do the Warriors anymore. And we've all been like, oh, we kind of expected you to say that a few years ago. But anyway, thank you very much for everything you've done, Deanna. You are a gem, and we are grateful to you. And you're always welcome in the SYNGAP party. And we hope that we'll see you again. So thank you, Deanna. Thank you, Ed, for taking over the Warriors while we look for a replacement. And if you have enjoyed reading the Wednesday Warriors and you want to help that tradition continue, please let us know. We need a parent to run the Warriors. And basically what it involves, guys, is, just sort of hanging out and looking at the Warriors list and looking at the parents and saying, hey, if you don't know Warrior yet, why not? Let's do it. Give me some pictures, and helping them, talking to them about writing the story, and then they write it down, and boom, you're done. So big shoes to fill from Deanna, but thank you, Deanna. You're the bomb. And we're looking for a replacement. Wrapping it up, guys. Conference is December 4th and 5th. Register now. curesyngap1.org/pre-2025. So pre-register. Get it on your calendar. It's never too early to plan. It's going to be an amazing conference in Atlanta. A lot of stuff going on. We need more volunteers. Links in the show notes. LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Insta. It's all there. I'd love more LinkedIn followers. We have 3,920. So I'd love that to be 4,000. If you know anyone on LinkedIn, if you're on LinkedIn, make sure you reshare our content, comment on our content, have your uncle, your dad, your mom, your sister, your colleagues, everybody follow SYNGAP Research Fund. That is where industry lives. We want to make sure we get out in front of them, and followers are sort of how LinkedIn decides if you're real or if you matter or whatever. If you're newly diagnosed and this was your first pod, I hope all of this activity and progress has given you some hope. There's lots of resources for you. syngap.fund/resources, links in the show notes. This pod is how we find people. It is a great resource, a great way to connect the SYNGAP community. Make sure that people know you think it's a great podcast. Give it a 5-star review. We have a channel. Check it out. Links in the show notes. Thanks for listening. It's going to be an exciting year. It's going to be an exciting year. Go to the study huddle on Thursday. Read about Minovacca. Read about Professor Coller's work. It's just, we're making progress so fast, guys. Talk to you soon.